look, I was looking up your apparently your first tour of Australia. I understand you just did Everclear, an
We
Everclear
did
tour. Yeah.
in February, yeah. So we're
Um,
coming back. We're doing a solo tour.
yeah.
Just
But yeah, I understand your first tour of Australia was little bit unpleasant.
you no, you're thinking of our fourth tour of Australia, 1998.
Right.
That was our fourth tour. Our first was in 95, second in 96, third in 90, third and fourth in 97. So yeah, that was in 98. Yeah. When the I mean I got hit in the mouth with a shoe and it hit the mic and it broke my tooth and cut my lip. And then 3 days later, I think at the Livid Festival in Brisbane, someone threw a pipe bomb on stage and someone stole Craig's bass and he went home crying like a little girl. And he didn't go to England, and then he saw that we toured with him without it to England without him, and he's like, I want to come back. I'm like, yeah, okay. So people made it more of a big deal about it than it really was. It wasn't that big of a deal. At the time, I think a lot of people took it that way, but to me, it was like, okay, whatever.
This is just how Australians say hello, apparently.
Australia, we were in Wollongong, so go figure. You know, they're a bunch of blue collar people, man. They're just like, you go to meet people. Hey, man, how you doing? Okay, I'll see you later. You
Um,
know, yeah, it's your guys' fault because of Australian rules football. That's what it is. It's your fault.
look, this was a nation full of convicts, like
No, and I used to say that. I go, you're all a bunch of fucking convicts. You're descended from convicts. You want to see the real convicts? Go over to Tassie, right? I mean,
that's where I'm
that's where the
from.
work. That well, they'll go figure. Look at you. Well, just look at you. I mean, you guys were descended from the worst of the worst. They wouldn't even let you stay in Australia. They put you out on an island to the south. Um, I love it. We've done Hobart 3 times. It's awesome. I
Good.
love it a
Yeah.
lot. I love Tassie.
Yeah, I grew up in Launceston in the north of Tasmania, and yeah, whenever we tour, you would have done. Did you ever get a chance to see Port Arthur, the actual convict?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's awesome. Dude. I'm a history freak. I'm a history freak. I read, I read all sorts of like uh, uh, fiction and nonfiction about historical stuff. A lot to do with, you know, like right now I'm reading a book about the history of Salisbury and Sarum, and just how so many people went from Southampton, got what they call transportation, right? In the 16, 17, 1800s
Hmm.
to Oceania, otherwise known as Australia. So, yeah, I love the history of it. Um, Pretty cool. There's some ugly shit there too, you know. Not as,
Yeah.
not as apparently not as bad as my 1998 tour of Australia.
Well, I mean, I do love that.
That was worse. That was worse than what you guys did to the Aborigines down in Tasmania. Oh my God.
I got to say, like, you're like, oh, it's no big deal. I'm like, yeah, but you did use the phrase pipe bomb. Okay.
Again, again, Australia. Pipe bomb to Australians. Uh, that's kind of like a firecracker
Yeah.
in the States. Yeah. But it's funny, they threw it on stage and it's smoking, and I'm like, holy fuck. I'm like, get away from it. And then this guy who's a, a, a stagehand, stoner guy with long hair runs over to it and grabs it. I'm like, oh, and it blew up in his hand. I'm like, I expected him to be like, you know, I threw my guitar down. I expected him to have like a stump spurting blood or something, or dead. And he's like, ow, that really hurt. And I'm like, Get out of here. He had some burns on his hand. Apparently, you guys can't do even a pipe bomb correctly. I don't
Oh,
know.
I know. Yeah, we're out of practice. They banned fireworks when I was a kid.
True,
So,
true.
yeah.
And guns when you were a kid.
Yeah.
So, what a shame. You're not able to kill a bunch of people all at once by yourself. How horrible.
Mate, if we
We
did,
got that. That's the American way, apparently.
yeah. Oh, mass shootings are as American as apple pie. So yeah, you guys
Yeah.
do it right. We did it
And of
once. And
course,
they were
we
like,
we don't fuck around. We don't go to like places of business or government places and kill politicians. No, we go to schools.
yeah.
Schools.
Oh, yeah.
It's the worst, man.
Well, you don't want to pick fights with people who can fight back. Come on. This is
No, no,
this
no.
is a smart move. You know.
It is the biggest cowardly bullshit you've ever heard in your life.
Uh,
Really?
yeah. Well, it's weird, isn't it? It happened once here, and the whole country. I mean, there was a lot of
Just for,
resistance to the gun laws. There was, a lot of the rural communities were pretty pissed off, and our prime minister was doing public speaking wearing a bulletproof vest at some point. Like it was pretty hard on, but yeah, we got rid of them, and it's never happened
and
again.
get and guess what? You're okay. You're
Mm,
okay.
who
Yeah.
knew?
Who needs a fucking really? You need a gun? You know what? I've learned in my life, don't talk shit to people that are bigger than you. How about that? Don't start shit with people that you can't back it up. And if you don't do that, you don't usually need a gun. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, there's people in the state of Arizona, and they're walking these fat guys are walking around with their big guns in their holster. I'm like, motherfucker, you put that over there and let's go talk. I
Yeah.
got 40 years on you, and I got MS, and I'll whoop your ass right now. Let's go. And it's just like, no, I need the gun to protect myself. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
right.
it's a thing that I must admit, I'm glad we just don't have to deal with because I truly don't know how you guys, yeah.
I joke about it, man, but it's heartbreaking. It's just heartbreaking.
Mm,
I wish I was there, don't you, to protect those children.
yeah.
It's just like, leave them alone. They're at school, you know? Go kill bad people. Go kill politicians if you're going to
Yeah.
kill anybody. Or how about not kill anybody? How about not put the gun away and not do that? Look, I grew up in a rough neighborhood. I grew up with a rough life. I know how to use a gun. I don't have a gun because I don't I believe that if you have something like that in your life, it's going to bring violence to you, you
Mm,
know. And I'm spiritual like that. I believe it's going to bring it to you. You open yourself up to it. I've got a friend of mine the other day that got cut off by a driver, and this guy's a pretty famous producer. I can't tell you who it is, but you'd know who it is. And he took his gun out of the lockbox. I go, man, once you unlock that thing, you open the door to horrible shit. He goes, you know, I thought the same thing, and the guy threw a shake, a vanilla shake at his car. And he's like, I can't believe he did that. I go, is it really killing somebody
yeah.
over the shake? Go get a fucking car wash, dude. You're living the dream. You have a beautiful movie star girlfriend. You're living the dream. Shut up.
Uh,
Just you don't need to shoot. You don't need to shoot anybody.
it's it's really interesting that the way that the world has changed. Like I'll just give this a bit of context. I'm 38 years old, so I was 10 years old in 1995. So Everclear was literally music that was around me growing up. The
That you
Triple
grew
J,
up with.
yeah, Hottest 100 compilation. So I hear songs like Wonderful and Santa Monica, and it just makes me think of my childhood. And I recently, over the Christmas holidays, rewatched the series Daria, which from MTV and whatnot. She's my fucking spirit animal. That one thing that I one thing that
My
I
wife,
really
my wife called Daria See, my wife's closer to your age. She's 41. And she's like, Daria was my spirit animal. I wanted to be Daria. I
Yeah.
was Daria.
Now, where I was going with this was that one thing I noticed is that for all that people like to think of, kids in the 90s being like, oh, I'm not okay, and it was a very disaffected kind of generation, they had a lot more optimism than kids today. Like the world in the 90s was a lot simpler, was a lot, you know, kids today, what have they got to look forward to? They've got anxiety about the climate, anxiety about politics, guns. Like,
Co COVID, they lived through the lockdown. They became adolescents during the lockdown, which, man, I don't know if you have children, but it was devastating for my youngest daughter, who's 16 now. She was like 12, going through the changes in her body that a 12-year-old girl does. And it's hard enough as it is being a teen and a preteen. And with the lockdown and not being able to socialize with other kids, which is really important for kids at that age, it was hard. Her and all her friends, she goes to an arts high school, and they're all a bunch of just art geeks, drama club kids. And they're all on medication and therapy and stuff. It's like a badge of honor who's on the most medication. It's like when we were kids, we wouldn't tell people if we were, they were trying to get my mom to give me Ritalin back in the 70s. And she's like, nope, I'm not giving my kids speed, not doing it.
well, I wish my parents did because I was part of the ADD generation, and in 1998 I was put on dexamphetamine, which is the flip side of Ritalin. So it's literally
It's like,
prescription speed. And
well, yeah, it's what do they call it? Adderall, right? Isn't that
yeah,
Adderall?
yeah. So I believe, yeah, Yanks. It's Adderall or
Call
something similar. And
yeah.
I was a drug addict by the time I was 13. I spent my adolescence up for 2 days sleep, up for 2 days sleep. I wouldn't tell my parents because then they'd take them off me. So I was a drug addict from the age of 12, which I believe, from what I've read, you've got a long, you yourself have got a long history with,
Me?
yeah,
Yeah,
like,
clean and sober for 34, going on 30. It'll be 35 years in June, and I'm
right.
very involved in my recovery and my program and all that stuff. It's something that's very close to me, but it's something I watch my kid with like a hawk. Now she's on medication, but it just basically normalizes her. Um, they have money medication for ADHD that's like ADD, like you, like that's stimulant based, and we don't do that
Mm.
because it keeps it. She does the non-stimulant version of it, and it helps her focus. It's not as good as the the stimulant based stuff, but she's skinny, and if she did that, like you said, she'd be up for 2 days at a time. She wouldn't eat at all, and it's not healthy. It's one thing to normalize you, and she takes. We make sure that she takes as little medication as possible. And as she's getting older, we're starting to slowly win her off it with her, psychiatrist, and a lot of parents are we're doing the same thing. And that's fine. I don't mind. If you're using medication in the right way, great. When I was a kid, I was like the same thing. If my mom would have given me Ritalin, I would have been selling that shit at school, in fifth grade, sixth grade. Yeah, and because I was selling drugs at school, you know, I was carrying a gun by the time I was 16 years old, dealing drugs. And yeah, so I have a history. I don't want her to do that because some people pull out of it like I did. Most don't. Most
Mhm.
don't get. And you've got a window as a kid to really enjoy. Just be a kid, man. Just enjoy life, right? It's like
Mhm.
how much fun it would be to be a kid again. Like for us to do a do-over, it'd be like, oh my God, no worries, no bills.
Oh, I
Just
just,
have fun.
yeah, I'd love to be able to go back to, if I could just like go back to the 90s and maybe, change a bit of the massive homophobia that I grew up around. Other than that, like, oh, I'd love to have a go at the 90s again.
I mean, I mean, the music was great.
Yeah.
Just kidding, just kidding. But there was some great bands, and all joking aside, I was glad to be and really proud to be a part of what was going on then, because I grew up in the '70s with melodic, big, loud, distorted rock bands like Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Aerosmith, Cheap Trick, just great bands that wrote great rock songs. And all of us in the '90s that had bands in the '90s, guys and gals, we grew up in the '70s, and then we lived through punk rock and new wave and hip hop and early alternative like Pixies and Sonic Youth and Husker Du, Replacements, Jane's Addiction, and we lived through all of that, so that helped shape what came out in the '90s. And there were some really eclectic bands that came out in the '90s. That one, I was so glad, because to me, people would go, "So what makes EVERCLEAR alternative?" I go, "I don't really think we're an alternative to anything. I think we're a rock and roll band." And I'm just glad to hear guitars on the radio again.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to hear some guitars on the radio now, to be honest with you.
It's a strange thing, isn't it? Yeah, the
It's
music world that
bizarre.
we're growing up in is a very different, like the collapse, the I wouldn't say the collapse, but the change of the music industry has democratized all this kind of stuff. So now, someone like Billie Eilish can make music in her bedroom and all of a sudden is, a huge star. Like
Yeah.
it's an odd thing.
I
It's
knew
not
that
relying.
we knew I knew it was going to happen, but and I think she's a really talented artist. Her and her brother are super talented. It's not rock and roll.
No.
I mean, I'm a rocker. I love rock and roll. I love music. I love hip hop. I like everything that's good, and there's some good stuff out there. But I miss rock and roll. I really do.
Uh,
So I got time for one more question, brother.
no, just to ask you quickly, I understand you saw the Sex Pistols back in the late 70s. Is that true? The Sex
What's
Pistols?
that? I did. Their last show at Winterland in San Francisco. I I left. My mom thought I was going over to a friend's house, and I went to San Francisco. I was living in LA. That's 5 hours away. It's pretty scary for your 16-year-old to be away. And I went there with the a gay guy that lived in the front apartment, and I stayed in the Tenderloin, or no, not in Tenderloin, over in one of the gay parts of town, Folsom, and I've never felt safer in my life. Those guys were so wonderful to me and protective of me, and it was lovely, and it was a shit show. It was the music when they came on stage, it was a shit show, but the opening bands, the Dills, who else was there? Uh, the Avengers, great early San Francisco punk rock bands.
No,
It was great.
easy. Thank you very much for your time today, man. And yeah, enjoy the
Awesome, man.
shows. All right.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Easy, mate. You too. Bye.